No surprise, law schools, left-wing law schools are trying to figure out a way to get around the Supreme Court's decision on affirmative action. Now, this was a landmark decision, in some ways, a decision that overturns almost a half century of racial discrimination in favor of, I won't say in favor of minorities, because it's in favor of some minorities, namely blacks and Hispanics, and against other groups, namely whites and Asian Americans. And this has been going on at the undergraduate level, in business schools and law schools. But law schools are some of the most egregious and relentless practitioners of affirmative action. And so it is not exactly astonishing that they don't like the Supreme Court decision. And being lawyers, they're going to think of clever ways to get around it. And they've by and large unified around a single strategy. Now, I'm going to tell you in a moment why the strategy is not going to work. In fact, it's not going to work because of legal precedent and legal reasoning. But we do need conservative organizations to file the lawsuits that are going to take this to court, that are going to challenge these law schools and force them ultimately to conform to the Supreme Court decision. So the law schools know that they cannot openly discriminate on the basis of race. They can't say, for example, okay, John, are you white or black or Hispanic? And we're going to give you, in a sense, brownie points or admissions points based upon your race. They can no longer do that. And the good old, in the past, they would also try to dodge some of these civil rights laws by saying, well, we don't have a quota, we only have goals. But the simple fact of it is, if you have goals and you're discriminating to achieve your goals, even if you don't have a rigid quota, the Supreme Court goes, who cares? This is not about goals or quotas. You cannot discriminate at all. And so the law schools have now decided, well, maybe we can test this law by finding race-neutral ways to achieve a racial outcome. Think about it this way. You could say, for example, and in fact, let's look at some particular examples that law schools are doing. One of them is, this was Columbia Law School. They initially announced, we're going to have our students submit a 90-minute video statement about themselves. Now, we know that if a student submits a video statement, the law school immediately knows what race they are. They don't have to ask you, they just look at your video. And so right away, there was an outcry, and there were groups that said, listen, if you do this, you're going to be sued, because this is a disguised way of counting by race while pretending not to. So Columbia withdrew that requirement, or at least that admissions demand, because they knew that this would be easily exposed as a pretext for racial discrimination. But there are other more clever ways to try to get a diverse result without explicitly considering race. So, for example, essay questions. Talk about your experiences and some of the hardships that you've experienced, Dinesh. And then I go, well, as an Asian Indian, well, that wouldn't help me because they're discriminating against Asians. But what I'm saying is, as a Hispanic, I've had to struggle in the barrio and so on. So the point is, it's a way that you can weave in your racial, quote, identity without the school explicitly asking you about race. Another way is for schools to say, well, we're going to downplay the LSAT, the law school admissions test. And by downplaying merit and raising up other considerations, the idea is that we're going to get a more diverse outcome. But even though these law schools are very clever, and there was a recent conference that involved the dean at UC Berkeley Law School. This is Erwin Chemerinsky, and also the University of Michigan General Counsel, a guy named Timothy Lynch. And they were talking almost in a certain kind of a wink-wink code. Let me quote Lynch to give you an idea of what they're talking about. You should be aware right now of the record you're creating. What are your faculty saying in emails? What are they saying in public? So it's almost like this legal guy is telling these law schools, listen, you can discriminate, but do it quietly. Don't make a record of it. Don't have your faculty say, hey, was this guy black in an email? Because that's going to be part of the discovery if you're ever sued. So it's almost like it's almost like when criminals cover their tracks, they're like, listen, I'm going to take money out of the ATM. I better pull my cap all over my face so no one will recognize me. So it's a disguise to avoid detection. That's what's going on. You can clearly see that's what these guys are talking about. And then Erwin Chemerinsky, by the way, a renowned legal scholar, he goes, great point. And then he goes on to say that, and he's talking to these students at a conference, and he goes, he's telling them techniques to get around the law. And then he goes, quote, if I'm ever deposed, I'm going to deny I said this to you. So this is like a smoking gun. These are deans and legal advisors, general counsels of law schools talking about getting around the law. The good news, I think, is that the Supreme Court is onto all this. And I say onto all this because for a long time, Southern Democrats in the South would try to achieve a racially discriminatory result in favor of whites by setting up these facially neutral criteria. So let's say you don't want blacks to vote. You go, okay, well, there's a poll tax. There's a $10 fee to vote. And no, we're not, there's no racial criteria. Everybody has to pay the $10. But the idea is that poor blacks can't afford the $10, so they're not going to vote. So that's a way of suppressing the black vote. There's a whole record of courts deciding that you can't do that. You cannot employ criteria that may seem facially neutral or neutral on its face, but nevertheless producing a racially discriminatory result. And if you can't do that to disadvantage blacks or other minority groups, neither can you do it to disadvantage whites or Asian Americans. Mike Lindell has a passion to help you get the best sleep of your life. He didn't stop with the pillows. He also created the Giza Dream bed sheets now. Debbie and I use these every day. They're awesome. They look and feel great, which means an even better night's sleep, which is crucial for our overall health. Mike found the world's best cotton called Giza. It's ultra soft and breathable, but also extremely durable. And Mike's latest deal is the sale of the year. For a limited time, you get 50% off the Giza Dream Sheets, marking prices down as low as $29.98, depending on the size. Go to mypillow.com and a promo code Dinesh. There you'll find not just this great offer, but deep discounts on all the MyPillow products, the robes, the mattresses, the mattress topper, the MyPillow kitchen towel sets, and so much more. The number to call, 800-876-0227. Again, it's 800-876-0227. Or go to mypillow.com to get all these discounts. You need to use the promo code DINESH, Dinesh.